Hey guys, tonight we are going to dismantle the one sanctuary you have left. We are going to take a magnifying glass to that warm, heavy, comforting void you crave at the end of every single day, and we are going to expose it for what it really is. A terrifying, biological gamble that you are forced to take every time you close your eyes. We're talking about the death of that cozy feeling, the moment when the act of shutting down ceased to be a luxury and became a source of existential dread. You're tucked in right now, aren't you? You've got the pillows arranged just so, the blanket pulled up to your chin, creating that false sense of security that nothing can get you as long as your toes aren't exposed. It feels safe. It feels necessary. But let's be honest, lying paralyzed in the dark for 8 hours while your brain hallucinates isn't exactly a survival strategy. And deep down, you probably won't survive this realization without losing a few nights of rest. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment letting me know where you are in the world and what time it is. I always like to know who's staying up with me and who's trying to drift off while listening to my voice. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to when sleep was magic, before it became a chore, a battleground, or a terrifying reminder of your own mortality. You remember the golden age, don't you? Think back to when you were 5 or 6 years old. In those days, sleep wasn't something you wanted. It was something you fought against with every fiber of your tiny, energetic being. It was the enemy of fun. It was the curfew that dragged you away from your toys, from the television, from the adult conversations you were desperately trying to eavesdrop on. You screamed, you bargained, you asked for one more glass of water, one more story, just to delay the inevitable. You viewed the bedroom as a prison cell and the bed as a sentence. You didn't know it then, but that resistance was the purest form of freedom you would ever experience. You fought sleep because you loved being alive so much that you didn't want to miss a single second of it. But the irony, the beautiful, tragic irony, is that when sleep finally conquered you back then, it was perfect. It was a total, blissful erasure. Do you remember the phenomenon of the car sleep? This is the hallmark of the golden age. You'd be in the back seat of your parents' car, driving home from a family gathering or a long trip. The rhythmic hum of the tires on the asphalt, the vibration of the engine against your back, the flash of streetlights cutting through the darkness like a strobe. It was hypnotic. You fought to keep your eyelids open, watching the world blur past until the weight became too much. You surrendered. And the next thing you knew, you were waking up in your own bed the next morning, with the sun streaming through the curtains. There was a gap in the timeline, a mysterious teleportation that happened between the car door opening and you waking up in pajamas. You had been carried. Someone, a giant in your world, had lifted your dead weight, carried you upstairs, navigated hallways, undressed you, and tucked you in, all while you were completely checked out of reality. That is the definition of safety. That is the definition of trust. You could afford to stop loving sleep back then because you were protected by a perimeter of parental vigilance. You didn't need to keep one eye open because someone else was doing the watching for you. Your unconsciousness was guarded. That heavy, sinking feeling, the feeling of falling into a soft abyss, was welcomed because you knew, with absolute certainty, that you would bounce back out of it. The golden age of sleep was defined by this lack of consequence. Dreams were just cartoons that played on the back of your eyelids. Nightmares were rare, and if they happened, a quick sprint to your parents' room dissolved the fear instantly. The monsters were external. They were under the bed or in the closet. They weren't inside your head yet. They hadn't set up shop in your amygdala. But as you trace the timeline of your life, you can probably pinpoint the exact era when the love affair started to sour. It's a gradual erosion. It starts when the carry-to-bed service stops. Suddenly, if you fall asleep on the couch, you wake up on the couch with a crick in your neck and a dry mouth, confused and disoriented in the middle of the night. The magic teleportation is gone. You have to walk yourself to bed. You have to lock the doors yourself. You have to check the stove. The responsibility of survival, of maintaining the perimeter, shifts from the guardians to you. And that is when the silence changes. In the golden age, silence was peaceful. It was a blank canvas. But as you grew older, silence became heavy. It became a vacuum. It demanded to be filled. And since there was no noise from the outside world to fill it, your brain decided to step up. This is where the betrayal begins. You lay your head down, expecting that familiar, warm embrace of nothingness, that sweet return to the back seat of the car, but instead, you get the review. You know the review. It's that unbidden, high-definition montage of every mistake you made that day, every awkward conversation from 3 years ago, and every looming deadline that is currently sitting on your desk waiting to devour you. The pillow, once a cloud, transforms into a slab of concrete. The duvet, once a shield, becomes a suffocating weight. You start to realize that resting requires a surprising amount of effort. You have to position your limbs perfectly. You have to regulate your breathing. You have to actively try not to think, which, as you know, is the best way to ensure that you think about absolutely everything. The innocence is gone. You aren't just drifting off anymore. You are negotiating a hostage situation with your own consciousness. This is why I stopped loving sleep. It wasn't a sudden breakup. It was a realization that the relationship had become abusive. I realized that I was spending a third of my life in a state of suspended animation that I no longer controlled. I looked at the biology of it, which we will get to. Oh, believe me, we will get to the gore of it. And I realized that what I thought was a recharging station was actually a biological maintenance cycle that required me to be totally vulnerable to the world. Think about the evolutionary absurdity of it for a second. You are an apex predator, arguably the most dominant species on the planet. And yet, once every 24 hours, you are required to find a soft spot, lie down, shut off your primary sense, vision, disconnect your motor functions, and lose consciousness for a solid 8 hours. In the wild, that is a death sentence. That is begging to be eaten. And while you might not have a saber-toothed tiger prowling your hallway tonight, that primal, lizard-brain fear is still there, buried deep under layers of civilization. That's why you check the lock twice. That's why you can't sleep if the closet door is slightly ajar. Your instincts know that the golden age is over. They know that sleep is dangerous. The transition from the childhood nap to the adult slumber is the transition from ignorance to awareness. You learned too much. You learned that the dark is full of things that can hurt you. And worse, you learned that your own mind is capable of conjuring horrors that reality could never match. You lost the ability to surrender. Now, sleep is a calculated risk. It's a surrender of control in a life that demands you be in control at all times. And the worst part? You still crave it. You still chase that high of the car ride sleep, that perfect, drooling oblivion. You buy weighted blankets. You swallow melatonin. You listen to white noise, all in a desperate attempt to recreate a feeling that was only possible because you didn't know any better. You are chasing a ghost. You are trying to return to a womb that has long since closed its doors to you. I stopped loving sleep because I realized it was the one thing I couldn't conquer. I could work harder, I could run faster, I could learn more, but I couldn't force myself to sleep. The more I wanted it, the further it ran away. It became a taunt. It became a nightly reminder of my own limitations. The golden age didn't just end. It was shattered by the ticking of the clock on the bedside table, mocking me with every passing minute that I remained awake. But this is just the surface. We are just looking at the psychological loss of innocence here. The feeling of missing the good old days of napping is just the emotional hook. What lies beneath that The actual mechanics of what happens when you finally manage to drift off is so much worse. You think you're just resting? You think your brain is just sitting there, idling like a car in neutral? You are dead wrong. What happens next in the architecture of your hallucinating brain is a horror story written in neurons and chemicals, and that is where we are going next. Now that we've stripped away the nostalgia, we have to look at the machinery. You have this idea, we all do, that when you fall asleep, your brain is shutting down, like a computer powering off. You imagine the lights in the office flickering out one by one until the building is dark and silent. That is a comforting lie. If your brain actually shut down, you would be dead. No, what happens when you drift off is not a shutdown. It is a shift change. The rational, logical, buttoned-up version of you clocks out, and the night shift takes over. And the night shift is managed by a lunatic. Let's talk about the architecture of this nightly hallucination. You lay there, stillness washing over your limbs, and you enter the first stage. But even the entrance is rigged with booby traps. Have you ever been just on the edge of the abyss, drifting nicely, when suddenly your entire body violently spasms, kicking out as if you've just missed a step on a staircase? That's the hypnic jerk. That is your brain panic-checking the system. For a split second, your primitive brain thinks, wait, the muscles are relaxing too fast, we're falling, we're dying. And it sends a massive electrical shock to your limbs to snap you back to life. You are trying to rest, and your own nervous system is gaslighting you into thinking you're plummeting to your death. That is your introduction to the night. Once you get past the gatekeepers of stage 1 and stage 2, the real horror show begins. We call it REM rapid eye movement. It sounds clinical, almost harmless. But physiologically, REM sleep is a state of paradox. If I were to hook you up to an EEG while you were in deep REM sleep, the readout would look almost identical to when you're wide awake and panicking. Your heart rate becomes irregular. Your breathing fluctuates. Your brain temperature actually rises. You aren't resting, my friend. You are running a marathon while strapped to a bed. This is the biological reality that made me stop loving sleep. The realization that dreaming is clinically indistinguishable from psychosis. Think about the diagnostic criteria for being psychotic. You see things that aren't there? Check. You believe things that are impossible? Check. You feel intense, unregulated emotions? Check. If you experienced your nightly dreams while you are walking around in the daylight, we would lock you up. But because you do it in the dark, horizontally, we call it rest. The architecture of this state is terrifyingly precise. To keep you from actually physically acting out the madness unfolding in your head, your brain initiates a chemical lockdown. A specific set of neurotransmitters, primarily glycine and GABA, flood your spinal column. They effectively sever the connection between your brain and your body. It is a chemical straitjacket. You are paralyzed, completely and utterly atonic. Your brain is screaming, run, or fight, or fly, firing signals down the neural pathways with the intensity of a lightning strike. But those signals hit a chemical wall at the top of your spine. You are a prisoner in your own bone structure. And why is this necessary? Because of what is happening in the visual cortex. Your eyes are darting back and forth under your eyelids. That's the rapid eye movement. But why? You aren't seeing anything. The room is pitch black. You are scanning a world that is being generated in real time by your synapses. You are watching a movie that is being written, directed, and projected simultaneously, with zero budget constraints and zero adherence to the laws of physics. But here is the cruelest part of the architecture, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. That is the part of your brain responsible for logic, for reason, for the reality check that says, hey, elephants can't talk, or I haven't been in high school for 15 years. During MLA sleep, that part of your brain is almost completely inactive. It is offline. The security guard has left the building. This is why you never question the nightmare. When the monster is chasing you, you don't stop to ask why it has the face of your second-grade teacher. When you are trying to run, but your legs feel like they are moving through molasses, you don't analyze the friction coefficients. You just accept it. You are stripped of your skepticism. You are forced to believe the lie. You are trapped in a simulation where the rules change constantly, and you have no ability to protest. I started to hate sleep when I realized that my brain was using this time not to relax, but to run threat simulations. Evolutionary biologists have a theory called the threat simulation theory. It suggests that the reason we dream, the reason we have nightmares, is that our brain is putting us through a nightly boot camp. It is throwing worst-case scenarios at us to see if we can survive them. It's practicing avoiding predators. It's practicing social ostracization. It's practicing falling from great heights. Think about the cruelty of that. You spend 16 hours a day dealing with the stress of modern life paying bills, navigating traffic, managing relationships. You finally lay down to recover, and your brain says, okay, good warm-up. Now let's see how you handle being hunted by a shadow demon in a house with no doors. You aren't recovering. You are training. You are being traumatized by your own subconscious in the name of survival preparedness. And let's look at the sensory inputs. In this state, your brain is cannibalizing its own data. It pulls memories from the dusty filing cabinets of your hippocampus, fragments of faces, snippets of conversations, the layout of your childhood home, and stitches them together into a grotesque collage. It's not a creative process. It's a scavenging one. It takes the beautiful, coherent narrative of your life and puts it through a shredder, then asks you to make sense of the confetti. The scary part isn't just that it happens. It's how good the simulation is. The hallucinations are multisensory. You don't just see the dream. You feel the cold wind. You smell the burning rubber. You hear the voice of a dead relative as clearly as if they were standing next to you. Your brain is capable of perfectly replicating reality, which begs the terrifying question: how do you know this isn't the simulation? But let's not go down that rabbit hole just yet. We have enough horror right here in the biology. The rest you are getting is a lie. Your metabolic rate in your brain during REM can be higher than when you are solving a complex math problem awake. You are burning glucose. You are firing neurons. You are washing the brain in cerebrospinal fluid, literally hosing down the gray matter to wash away the toxic byproducts of consciousness, while simultaneously subjecting the psyche to a customized torture chamber. I stopped loving sleep when I realized I wasn't the pilot of the ship. When you are awake, you have the illusion of control. You choose what to think about. You choose where to look. But when you sleep, you are strapped into the roller coaster. You are the passive observer of your own mind's chaotic potential. And the only thing keeping you from thrashing around and hurting yourself is that dose of paralytic chemicals your brainstem kindly injected into you. But what happens when that system glitches? What happens when the hallucination continues, but the chemical straitjacket fails to disengage? Or worse, what happens when the straitjacket works too well and you wake up, but you can't move? The architecture is fragile, guys. It relies on a perfect synchronization of neurotransmitters and brain waves. And when that synchronization slips, even by a fraction of a second, the monsters from your M cycle don't just stay in the dream. They bleed out. They step into the room with you. You think the darkness behind your eyelids is a private theater? It's about to become a very public stage. We are about to explore what happens when the barriers break down, when the paralysis lingers, and when the things you see in your sleep decide to sit on your chest and stare you in the face. You open your eyes. That's the first mistake. The room is dark, illuminated only by the faint, sickly glow of a street lamp, filtering through the blinds, or the digital red stare of an alarm clock. It is 3 a.m. You are awake. Your mind is crisp, lucid, and alert. You think, okay, I'm awake. I need to roll over, or I need to get a glass of water. You send the command to your arm to lift the covers. Nothing happens. You send the command again, louder this time, screaming it through your neural pathways. Move. But your arm is dead weight. It's not just heavy, it is disconnected. You try to wiggle a toe. Nothing. You try to open your mouth to call out, to make a sound, to groan, but your jaw is welded shut. Your tongue is a slab of concrete in your mouth. The only thing you can control is your breathing, and even that feels manual, labored, like you are trying to suck air through a wet towel. Welcome to the glitch. Welcome to sleep paralysis. This is the moment where the architecture we just talked about collapses on top of you. Your brain has woken up, the consciousness has rebooted, but the chemical dampeners, those paralytics meant to keep you from acting out your dreams, haven't flushed out of your system yet. You are a mind trapped in a corpse. And then the atmosphere changes. If it were just paralysis, it would be a medical curiosity. It would be annoying. But it's not just paralysis. A primal, icy dread washes over you. A fear so pure and concentrated that it feels like a physical injection of adrenaline into your heart. You aren't just unable to move. You are being hunted. You sense it before you see it. There is a presence in the room. It's in the corner, just past the foot of the bed, where the shadows are thickest. Your eyes, the only part of you that can still dart around in a frenzy, lock onto the darkness. And the darkness separates itself from the wall. This is the night hag. You might think you're too modern for this folklore. You might think you're too rational to believe in demons sitting on your chest. But in this state, your rationality is irrelevant. This is a universal human horror. It doesn't matter if you are a software engineer in Silicon Valley or a medieval peasant in 14th century Europe. When the paralysis hits, the hag comes. History is littered with her victims. The word nightmare itself is a linguistic fossil of this exact terror. It doesn't mean a bad dream about missing a test. The mare comes from Old English mare, a demon or goblin that rides on people's chests while they sleep to suffocate them. In Scandinavia, she is the mara. In Germany, the alp. In Newfoundland, they call this the old hag. In Japan, it is kanashibari, or bound by metal. In Brazil, she is the pisadera, a crone with long fingernails who stomps on your belly. Different cultures, separated by oceans and centuries, all describing the exact same entity. Why? Because the entity isn't out there. It's in here. As you lie frozen, the shadow moves closer. It defies physics. It glides. You try to scream, but the sound dies in your throat, a silent, choking gurgle. The entity climbs onto the bed. You feel the mattress depress. You physically feel the weight of it shifting toward you. This is the hallucination bleeding into tactile reality. Your brain, frantic to explain why you cannot move and why you feel such crushing pressure on your chest, scans its database of fears and projects the worst possible scenario onto your retinas. It crawls on top of you. You can feel its knees digging into your ribs. It settles on your sternum, crushing the air out of your lungs, and then it leans in. You can smell it something ancient, musky, like wet earth or rotting flowers. It brings its face inches from yours. Sometimes it's an old woman with hollow eyes. Sometimes it's a shadowy figure in a hat. The hat man is a shockingly common modern variation. Sometimes it's an alien gray, but the intent is always the same. Pure, unadulterated malice. This is why I stopped loving sleep, because I realized that my own brain is a traitor. When faced with a biological error, a mismatch between waking and moving, my brain doesn't send a pop-up message saying, "System error. Please wait for motor functions to restore." No. It decides the most logical explanation for my paralysis is that a demon from the underworld has broken into my bedroom to steal my soul. The amygdala, the fear center of your brain, is firing at maximum capacity. It detects the paralysis as a life-threatening situation. It screams, "Predator." And because your visual cortex is still in a semi-dream state, it obliges. It creates the predator. It renders the monster in 4K resolution. You are creating your own haunter in real time. And the worst part about the night hag? It feels longer than it is. In reality, sleep paralysis usually lasts a few seconds, maybe a couple of minutes. But in the moment, it feels like an eternity. You are trapped in a singularity of terror. You bargain with God. You promise to be a better person if you can just wiggle your little toe. You focus all your willpower, every ounce of your spirit, into breaking the seal. And then, snap, the chemicals flush, the connection reestablishes. You gasp, your body jerking violently as if you've just surfaced from deep water. The weight on your chest vanishes instantly. The shadow in the corner dissolves back into a pile of laundry or a coat rack. The silence returns, but the feeling doesn't leave. The adrenaline is still coursing through your veins. You sit up, heart hammering against your ribs like a trapped bird, and you scan the room. You know, intellectually, that it was a hallucination. You can Google it. You can read the Wikipedia page about hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations. You can tell yourself it was just glycine and GABA mismanagement. But your body remembers the weight. Your skin remembers the coldness of the presence. And now you have to make a choice. Do you lie back down? Do you close your eyes and risk slipping right back into that paralyzed state? Because that happens. The loop is real. You break out, you drift off, and bam, you're stuck again, and the hag is back, and she's angry that you woke up. Sleep paralysis teaches you that you are not the master of your own house. It teaches you that the border between the real world and the nightmare world is paper thin, and your brain can tear through it whenever it wants. It transforms the bed from a sanctuary into a potential altar where you are the sacrifice. I stopped loving sleep because I met the tenant that lives in the darker corners of my mind. I realized that sleep isn't just a lack of consciousness. It's a journey into a hostile territory where the physics of fear rule. And this experience, this personal, solitary confinement of terror, is a relatively modern luxury. We endure this alone now. We have our private rooms, our private beds, our private nightmares. But it wasn't always this way. There was a time when you wouldn't have faced the hag alone. You would have been surrounded by the stench of unwashed bodies, the scratch of straw, and the chaotic symphony of a dozen other people, snoring, farting, and coughing right next to you. If you think the night hag is bad, wait until you see the conditions humanity endured before the invention of the private bedroom. We're going back to the muck. We're going back to a time when sleeping like a baby meant sleeping in a pile of filth with your livestock. Because believe it or not, the history of where we sleep is just as horrifying as the history of how we sleep. If the night hag is the horror of isolation, history offers a cure that is arguably worse: the horror of the crowd. You lie there today, in your climate-controlled box, on your hypoallergenic memory foam, complaining that the street lamp outside is a little too bright, or that your partner is breathing a little too loudly. You have no idea how good you have it. You have forgotten that for the vast majority of human existence, sleep was not a private act. It was a contact sport. It was a communal ordeal of smell, filth, and unwanted intimacy that would make your skin crawl right off your body. Let's strip the sheets off the bed of history. You have this romanticized image of the past, don't you? You picture a four-poster bed in a castle, draped in velvet, a roaring fire in the corner. But unless you were royalty, and statistically speaking, you weren't. Your reality was a pile of straw on a dirt floor. And you weren't the only thing nesting in it. Before we even get to the human bedfellows, we have to talk about the bed itself. For centuries, the standard sleeping surface was a pallet. It was essentially a large burlap sack stuffed with straw, hay, or corn husks. Now, think about the biology of organic matter. Straw breaks down. It rots. It collects moisture from the air, and more importantly, moisture from the bodies sleeping on it. Sweat, drool, urine, it all soaked into the straw. Over time, your bed wasn't just a mattress. It was a compost heap. It was a decomposing ecosystem that you voluntarily laid your head on every night. And because it was an ecosystem, it had inhabitants. We say, don't let the bedbugs bite, as a cute little rhyme today, but for your ancestors, that was a literal, desperate prayer. As straw was teeming with life. Fleas, lice, mites, and bedbugs didn't just visit. They lived there. They bred there. When you went to sleep in the Middle Ages, you were essentially offering yourself up as a buffet to a micro-civilization of parasites. You would wake up covered in welts, scratching until you bled, accepting that being eaten alive was just the price of admission for unconsciousness. But the bugs were the least of your worries. The real nightmare was the other people. In the medieval peasant's home, the hall, as it was generously called, privacy, was a concept that simply did not exist. The house was usually 1 or 2 rooms, and everyone slept in the same space. I don't just mean you and your spouse. I mean you, your spouse, your 6 children, your elderly grandparents, and possibly an aunt or uncle, all crammed onto the same floor or into the same large, sprawling bed structure. You think you have insomnia because your partner steals the covers? Try sleeping sandwiched between a snoring grandfather and a teething toddler, with your elbow in someone's face and someone else's foot in your stomach. It was a tangle of limbs. It was a symphony of bodily noises. If someone had gas, everyone suffered. If someone was sick, everyone got sick. If someone died in the night, you might not realize it until morning, meaning you spent the last few hours of your rest spooning a corpse. And it didn't stop at humans. We have to talk about the livestock. In many poorer households, body heat was the only heating system available. And who generates a lot of body heat? Cows, pigs, chickens. It was common practice to bring the animals into the lower level of the house, or even the same room, during the winter. So now, add the stench of wet dog, the musk of a cow, and the ammonia-sharp smell of animal manure to the bouquet of unwashed human bodies. You were sleeping in a barn, pretending it was a bedroom. You were breathing in air that was so thick with particulate matter and biological waste that it's a miracle anyone woke up at all. This communal misery extended beyond the home, too. Let's say you were traveling. You stop at an inn. You ask for a room. The innkeeper looks at you like you're insane. You don't get a room. You get a spot in a bed, and that bed is already occupied by 2 strangers. It was standard practice for travelers to share beds with absolute strangers. You would strip down to your undergarments, or nothing at all, and slide in next to a merchant from a different town, a soldier returning from war, or a pilgrim with a hacking cough. You trusted these people with your life while you were at your most vulnerable. You had to hope they weren't thieves. You had to hope they weren't murderers. You had to hope they didn't have the plague. There is a famous artifact called the Great Bed of Ware, built in England in the late 16th century. It is over 10 feet wide. It was designed to sleep at least 4 couples side by side. Imagine that. 8 people, 4 couples, all in one bed. The sheer logistics of it are baffling. The social awkwardness is off the charts. Were you supposed to make polite conversation before blowing out the candle? What if the couple on the far left got ... amorous? You just had to lay there, staring at the timber beams of the ceiling, trying to ignore the rhythmic creaking and the muffled sounds of intimacy happening 3 feet away from your ear. That is the other dark side of communal sleeping, the total erasure of boundaries. Sex wasn't private. Birth wasn't private. Death wasn't private. Everything happened in the open, in the dark, surrounded by the heavy breathing of the rest of the household. Children learned the facts of life, not from a talk, but from listening to their parents in the dark. It was a raw, unfiltered existence where personal space was a luxury only the ultra-rich could afford. And even the rich weren't safe. Even if you were a king or queen, your bedroom was a public space. Courtiers would watch you go to bed. Servants slept on trundle beds at the foot of your mattress, ready to wake up if you needed a drink of water. You were never, ever alone. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that the modern isolation we cherish is a frantic overcorrection. We are so traumatized by our genetic memory of the communal straw pile that we have built fortresses of solitude. We buy king-sized beds for one person. We need white noise machines to block out the sound of a car driving by a mile away, because our ancestors spent thousands of years trying to sleep through the sound of a pig snorting in the corner. We carry this history in our bones. Why do you think you feel safer when you are under a heavy duvet? It's not just warmth. It mimics the crushing weight of the pile. It mimics the sensation of being huddled together for survival. Because that's what sleep was. A survival huddle. You didn't sleep for restoration. You slept to not freeze to death. You tolerated the smell and the bugs and the elbows because the alternative was the cold void outside. So tonight, when you are feeling lonely in your empty room, remember the straw. Remember the stranger's breath on your neck. Remember the bedbugs waiting for the lights to go out. The history of sleep is a history of filth, and we have spent centuries trying to scrub it clean. But even as we cleaned up the bed, even as we kicked the cows out of the house and built walls between the children and the parents, we lost something else. We lost the rhythm. We lost the natural flow of the night. We cleaned up the space, but we broke the time. Because in those communal beds, amidst the squalor, people didn't sleep the way you do. They didn't aim for this monolithic 8-hour block of unconsciousness that you stress over. They had a secret. They had a forgotten ritual that split the night in two. A ritual that we have completely erased from our modern lives, leaving us confused and anxious when we wake up at 2 a.m. You think waking up in the middle of the night is a disorder? You think it's a sign that you're broken? No. It's a sign that you are remembering a time before the industrial clock enslaved your circadian rhythm. We are about to uncover the myth of the 8-hour sleep and explore the lost world of the watch. You know the feeling. It is 2:47 a.m. Your eyes snap open as if pulled by an invisible string. You aren't groggy. You are wide awake. You check the phone, groaning at the time, and immediately the panic sets in. You do the mental math. If I fall back asleep right now, I can get 3 hours and 12 minutes before the alarm. You squeeze your eyes shut. You turn over. You count sheep. You try to meditate. But the more you try to force the unconsciousness, the further away it drifts. You lie there convinced that you are broken, that you are suffering from a disorder, that your body is failing you. But I am here to tell you that you aren't broken. You are just ancient. You are a time traveler stuck in the wrong century. The reason I stopped loving sleep is that I realized the rules we follow, the 8-hour rule, the solid block of rest, are a modern fabrication. They are a lie. For the vast majority of human history, nobody slept for 8 hours straight. It simply wasn't done. If you were to go back to 17th century England, or medieval France, or ancient Rome, and tell someone you slept through the entire night without waking up, they would look at you with concern. They would ask if you were ill, or perhaps drunk. We have forgotten the first sleep and the second sleep. Before the light bulb, before the factory whistle, humans followed a biphasic sleep pattern. The sun went down, and because candles and oil were expensive, there wasn't much to do. So people went to bed early, around 9 o'clock or 10 p.m. They would sleep deeply for about 4 hours. This was the dead sleep or the premier sawmill. It was heavy, restorative, and dreamless. And then, around midnight or 1 a.m., they woke up. This wasn't insomnia. It was expected. It was a distinct phase of the night. In French, they had a word for this waking period, dorveil, a portmanteau of sleep and wake. It was a magical, liminal hour where the world was silent, the work was done, and the day hadn't started. People didn't lay in bed stressing about the stock market or their email inbox. They got up. They urinated. They poked the fire back to life. They smoked tobacco. They prayed. In fact, this period, often called the watch, was considered the most spiritual time of the day. The barrier between the physical and the spiritual was thought to be thinnest in the silence of the split night. Monks used this time for their most devout chants. Philosophers used it for their deepest thinking. It was a time of clarity. Your brain, fresh from 4 hours of deep rest, was in a unique state of calm alertness, untouched by the chaos of the morning rush. It was also a time for socialization. In those crowded beds we just talked about, this was the hour when people talked. They caught up on the gossip. They planned the next day. And quite frankly, this was when the human race perpetuated itself. Medical texts from the 1600s explicitly advised couples that the time after the first sleep was the best time for conception, because the body was rested and the mind was clear. The peasant class didn't have date night. They had dorveil. This is documented everywhere in history, hidden in plain sight. You can find references to first sleep in Chaucer, in the Odyssey, in the legal depositions of ordinary people. A witness in a court case might say, "I heard the intruder during my first sleep," or "I saw him walking down the road after my second sleep had begun." It was as common a time marker as lunchtime or sunset. So what happened? Why do you feel like a failure when you wake up at 3 a.m. today? The Industrial Revolution murdered the watch. We became obsessed with efficiency. As streetlights illuminated the night and factories demanded early start times, we compressed our rest. We didn't have time for a leisurely 2-hour break in the middle of the night to ponder the cosmos or chat with our spouse. We needed to condense our recovery into a single, efficient block. We forced our biology to adapt to the machine. We squeezed the air out of the night. The 8-hour block is a factory setting, not a human one. It is designed to maximize your time on the assembly line, not your well-being. And this is why the realization is so bitter. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that the ideal, I was chasing the head hitting the pillow and not moving until morning fantasy, was actually unnatural. I was fighting millions of years of evolution that wanted me to wake up and check the perimeter. Your brain wakes you up at 3 a.m. because that is what it is designed to do. It is expecting the dorveil. It is waiting for the period of reflection. But instead of giving it that, you look at the clock and flood your system with cortisol. You interpret a natural biological event as a medical emergency. You stress about being tired the next day, and that stress is what actually prevents you from falling into the second sleep. The second sleep, or morning sleep, was different. It was lighter, filled with vivid dreams. It was the drift toward dawn. By eliminating the break, we have mashed these two distinct phases together, often losing the quality of both. We force ourselves to stay under, medicating ourselves to bypass the natural waking point, and then we wonder why we feel groggy and disjointed. There is a profound sadness in this loss. We have lost the only quiet time we ever had. Think about your life. When do you have absolute silence? When do you have time to just be, without a screen, without a task, without a demand? That midnight hour was a sanctuary. It was a time to be alone with your thoughts in a way that wasn't frightening. Now, being alone with your thoughts at 3 a.m. is terrifying because you feel you are wasting sleep. You are stealing from your own battery. The modern bed is a pressure cooker. You have a quota to fill. I need my 8 hours. I'm in sleep debt. We treat sleep like a bank account that we are constantly overdrawn on. We have turned it into a performance metric. We track it with watches and rings and apps that give us a score in the morning. Imagine that. You wake up, and before you even get out of bed, a piece of technology tells you that you failed at sleeping. Your readiness score is 42. Well, thanks. Now I'm anxious about tonight before I've even started today. I stopped loving sleep because it became a job. It became something I had to be good at. And the harder I tried to be good at it, the more my ancient biology fought back. I would lie there in the dark, wide awake, feeling the ghost of the watch calling to me, wanting me to get up and look at the moon. But I couldn't. I had to stay in the box. I had to adhere to the schedule. I had to pretend that I was a machine that could power down on command. But here is the darkest part of the myth. For some of us, it's not just a matter of waking up, rolling over, and struggling to find the second sleep. For some of us, the mechanism breaks entirely. The brain wakes up for the watch, but it refuses to ever go back down. The gap doesn't last for an hour. It lasts for the rest of the night, and then the next night, and the next. When the rhythm shatters completely, you don't just get segmented sleep. You get the void. You get the white-hot friction of a mind that has forgotten how to turn off. We are moving from the historical annoyance of a lost schedule to the medical nightmare of a broken switch. We are about to enter the spiral. We are going to look at what happens when the check engine light of your brain doesn't just flicker, it stays on, burning brighter and hotter until the engine block melts. You think you know what it means to be tired? You have no idea. We are going to explore the physiological torture of true insomnia, where the very concept of rest becomes a distant, mocking memory. You start to bargain with the ceiling. That is the first sign that you have crossed the line from bad sleeper to insomniac. It's 4:12 a.m. The bargaining begins. If I fall asleep right now, you whisper to the drywall, I can still get 2 hours. 2 hours is enough to function. I can do 2 hours. You close your eyes. You perform the ritual. You relax the jaw. You drop the shoulders. You breathe in for 4. Hold for 7, out for 8. You wait for the wave to take you. And then your brain whispers, but what if you don't? That's it. The game is over. The seed is planted. The adrenaline spikes, just a tiny little squirt, like lemon juice in a paper cut. Your heart rate jumps from a resting 58 to a vigilant 72. You are now actively monitoring your own attempt to sleep, which is the most effective way to ensure you never sleep again. You are observing the observer. It is a physiological loop of torture that feeds on its own energy. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that insomnia isn't just not sleeping. It is a state of hyperarousal. It is your body betraying you by activating the fight or flight response in a room where the only danger is the pillow. Your cortisol levels are high. Your core body temperature, which needs to drop for you to drift off, stays stubbornly elevated. You are a furnace of anxiety burning in the dark. The first night is annoying. You drag yourself through the next day, chugging coffee, feeling grit behind your eyelids. You tell your coworkers, I didn't sleep well, and they nod sympathetically. They don't know. They think you mean you tossed and turned. They don't understand the stillness of the true insomniac, the paralysis of laying there, hour after hour, completely motionless, while your mind screams static. The second night is where the fear sets in. You hit the pillow, and your brain recognizes the location. It doesn't see a bed anymore. It sees a boxing ring. The association has been made. Bed equals struggle. You are conditioned like Pavlov's dog, but instead of salivating, you panic. You try to read. You try to listen to a podcast. But the exhaustion is a physical weight, a lead blanket pressing you down. Yet your mind is racing at 100 miles per hour. It's tired but wired. It's the feeling of a car with the brakes cut careening down a hill. By the third night, the reality begins to fracture. This is the physiological torture I'm talking about. Sleep is the cleaning cycle of the brain. It's when the glymphatic system opens up the plumbing and flushes out the beta amyloid plaques and other metabolic waste products that accumulate during the day. When you don't sleep, that trash builds up. Your brain becomes a toxic waste dump. You start to microsleep. This is terrifying. You are sitting at a red light or typing an email, or God forbid, holding a knife while chopping vegetables. And for a fraction of a second, your brain forces a shutdown. The lights go out. Then snap, you're back, heart pounding, disoriented. You lost time. You didn't decide to close your eyes. Your brain just pulled the plug to save itself. Your emotional regulation dissolves. You cry because you dropped a spoon. You feel a murderous rage because the person in front of you is walking too slowly. The prefrontal cortex, the CEO of your brain that handles logic and impulse control, is offline. You are operating entirely from the amygdala. You are a raw nerve ending walking around in clothes. I stopped loving sleep because I saw what happened to my own personality when it was taken away. I became a stranger to myself. I wasn't kind. I wasn't smart. I wasn't funny. I was a hollow shell vibrating with exhaustion. I would look in the mirror and see the dark circles, the bloodshot eyes, the gray skin, and realize that I was physically deteriorating. And the world doesn't stop. That's the cruelest part. The sun still comes up. The alarm still goes off. The bills still need to be paid. You have to perform the pantomime of a functioning human being while your internal organs feel like they are shutting down. You start to hallucinate, not the fun, trippy kind, the subtle, gaslighting kind. You see a cat dart across the room in your peripheral vision, but you don't own a cat. You hear your name being called in a silent house. Shadows stretch and warp. The walls breathe. This is the psychosis of the sleepless. Deprive a human of sleep for long enough, and they will break. It is the most effective torture method in history for a reason. It leaves no marks. It requires no tools. You just keep the lights on. You just keep them awake. And eventually, they will tell you anything you want to hear just to be allowed to close their eyes. But you are doing it to yourself. You are the torturer and the prisoner. You try the pills. Oh, we all try the pills. The over-the-counter blue gels, the herbal teas, the prescription strength hammers. And sometimes they work, but it's not real sleep. It's sedation. It's being knocked out. You wake up feeling hungover, chemically altered, with a metallic taste in your mouth. And the fear is still there. The fear that tonight, the pill won't work. The fear that you are building a tolerance. The fear that you have forgotten how to sleep naturally. There is a specific loneliness to the 4 a.m. club. You scroll through social media, seeing the timestamps of other posts. Who else is up, you wonder? You see the perfectly curated lives of people who slept 8 hours. You feel a deep, irrational resentment toward them. They don't know how lucky they are. They take this biological miracle for granted. They lay down, they close their eyes, they wake up. Magic. For you, it is a war of attrition. You start to obsess over the hygiene. No blue light after 8 p.m. Bedroom at 65 degrees. Blackout curtains. White noise. Pink noise. Brown noise. You turn your life into a monastic ritual dedicated to the worship of a god that has forsaken you. You are doing everything right, and it still isn't working. And that is the breaking point. That is when you realize that sleep is not a reward for good behavior. It is not a guarantee. It is a fragile biological function that can simply ... stop. Imagine if your heart just decided to skip a few thousand beats every night. Imagine if your lungs just decided they didn't feel like expanding for a few hours. You would be in the emergency room. But with sleep, you just lay there. You suffer in silence. You stare at the clock, watching the numbers change, each minute a tick mark on your sanity. 4:58, 4:59, 5 o'clock. The birds start chirping. Is there a sound more hateful, more mocking, more universally loathed by the insomniac than the morning bird? It is the soundtrack of failure. It signals that the battle is lost. The night is over. You didn't win. You have to get up now. You have to face the day with zero fuel in the tank. I stopped loving sleep because I learned to fear the night. The bedroom became a place of trauma. The pillow became a symbol of defeat. I would walk past my bedroom door during the day and feel a pit in my stomach, a preemptive anxiety for the battle that was coming in 12 hours. But here is the truly terrifying thought. What if it never comes back? What if the mechanism is permanently jammed? You think insomnia is bad? You think feeling tired is the worst it gets? Insomnia is just the waiting room. There is a door at the back of the waiting room that leads to a place where sleep is impossible. Literally impossible. There is a disease, a rare, genetic, merciless executioner that strips away the ability to sleep entirely. Not just for a night, not just for a week, forever, until you die. It proves that sleep isn't just a luxury or a habit. It is the only thing keeping you from death. We are about to look into the face of the ultimate nightmare, fatal familial insomnia. You think you know what tired feels like. You think that staring at the ceiling at 4 a.m., eyes burning, mind racing, is the ultimate form of torture. You complain about your insomnia because you only got 4 hours of broken rest before your alarm went off. But let me tell you something. You are merely visiting a country where some people are forced to live until they die. You are a tourist in the land of sleeplessness. There are permanent residents here, and their story is the single most terrifying medical reality I have ever encountered. This is the reason I stopped viewing sleep as a casual activity and started viewing it as a hostage negotiation with my own biology. Because there is a disease, a rare, genetic, microscopic assassin that proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that sleep is not a choice. It is a biological mandate. And when that mandate is revoked, the result is a descent into hell that Dante couldn't have imagined. It's called fatal familial insomnia, or FFI. The name itself is a horror story in 3 words. Fatal, you will die. Familial, it's in your blood, passed down like a cursed heirloom from parent to child. Insomnia, you will not sleep, ever again. It starts innocently enough. Usually, you're in your 50s. You've lived a normal life. You've had good nights and bad nights. Then, one day, you find it a little harder to drift off. You think it's stress. You think it's the coffee. But then the sweat starts. You are sweating profusely for no reason. Your pupils shrink to pinpoints. Your blood pressure skyrockets. You are suffering from a sudden, unexplained panic attack that doesn't end. You go to the doctor. They give you sleeping pills, barbiturates, benzodiazepines, the heavy stuff. You take them, expecting the sweet release of a coma. But they don't work. In fact, they make it worse. Instead of knocking you out, they just sedate your body while your brain remains wide, terrifyingly awake. You are trapped in a chemical cage, but the lights are still blazing. Here is the mechanics of the nightmare. Deep in the center of your brain, there is a walnut-sized structure called the thalamus. Think of the thalamus as the master switchboard operator of your consciousness. It takes all the sensory input, what you see, hear, feel, and routes it to the right place. But its most important job happens at night. When it's time to sleep, the thalamus shuts the doors. It blocks the sensory input. It disconnects the outside world so your brain can enter the restorative stages of slow-wave sleep. It is the gatekeeper of dreams. In FFI, a mutated protein, a prion, begins to eat the thalamus. Prions are terrifying because they aren't viruses or bacteria. They are malformed proteins that convince other proteins to fold the wrong way. They are biological glitches. And in this specific disease, they target the switchboard. They chew holes in the thalamus until it looks like a sponge. The result? The gatekeeper dies. The doors cannot be closed. The switch cannot be flipped. You are permanently, biologically, irrevocably online. Can you imagine the claustrophobia of your own skull? You cannot turn it off. You cannot look away. Your brain is flooded with constant, unceasing sensory data. You are exhausted beyond the capacity of language to describe, but you cannot sleep. You try to close your eyes, but the brain waves never change. You never enter the restorative phase. You never get the cleaning cycle we talked about. The toxins build up. The damage accumulates. The progression of the disease is a slow-motion execution. It typically plays out over 6 to 30 months. First comes the progressive insomnia. You lose the ability to nap. Then you lose the ability to sleep through the night. Then you lose sleep entirely. At the same time, the paranoia sets in. Without the emotional reset of end sleep, your brain creates its own monsters. You start to hallucinate. This isn't the fun, abstract dreaming of a healthy person. This is oneric stupor. It's a waking dream. Patients with FF, I will drift into a state where they are technically awake. Their eyes are open. They are moving, but they are acting out scenes from a life that isn't happening. A patient might sit up in bed and mind the actions of buttoning a shirt that isn't there. They might have a conversation with a relative who died 10 years ago. They are stuck in the borderland, the gray zone between reality and the void, unable to fully enter either. Then comes the physical collapse. Because you aren't sleeping, your body can't repair tissues. You lose weight rapidly. Your immune system crashes. You age decades in a matter of months. You become a ghost in your own skin, shuffling through the hallways, trembling, sweating, eyes wide with a terror that has no name. The most famous case, the one that brought this horror to light, was a man named Silvano in Italy. He was a cultured, elegant man who knew the family curse. He had watched his father and his sisters die of it. When the symptoms started for him, the pinprick pupils, the sweat he knew, he checked himself into a sleep clinic and said, "I will not sleep again." He offered his brain to science. He allowed them to film him as he deteriorated. There is footage of these patients. It is the hardest thing you will ever watch. You see a person sitting in a chair, head lolling, looking for all the world like they are, dozing off. But if you speak to them, they snap to attention instantly. They weren't asleep. They were just gone. They are trapped in a state of agrypnia excitata, agitated wakefulness. Toward the end, the ability to speak goes. The ability to walk goes. But the awareness? That's the cruelest joke. The awareness often remains until the very end. You are locked inside a crumbling building, watching the roof cave in, feeling the walls buckle, but you cannot leave. You are conscious of your own disintegration. The only cure for fatal familial insomnia is death. That is the only time the patient finally gets to rest. I stopped loving sleep when I learned about FFI because it shattered the illusion of control. We think we sleep because we are tired. We think we sleep because we choose to lie down. No, we sleep because a tiny cluster of neurons in the center of our brain allows us to. We sleep by the grace of the thalamus. And if that cluster fails, if that protein folds the wrong way, the gift is taken back. It forces you to look at your own pillow differently. Tonight, when you close your eyes and you feel that heavy, warm darkness wash over you, don't be annoyed that it took 20 minutes. Be on your knees with gratitude. That darkness is a shield. It is a biological miracle. You are being granted a reprieve from the burden of consciousness. FFI proves that wakefulness is a toxic state. Being awake destroys you. It burns energy, it accumulates waste, it stresses the system. Sleep is the antidote. Sleep is the only thing keeping you from burning out like a filament in an overpowered light bulb. So you see, the insomnia you complain about is a mercy. It is a glitch, yes, but it is a survivable one. You will eventually crash. Your brain will eventually force a microsleep. You will survive. The victims of FF do not crash. They burn until there is nothing left but ash. And yet, even for those of us with healthy thalami, who can escape into the dark, the brain has other ways of betraying us. The thalamus might work. The gate might close. But what happens when the things locked inside the gate decide to riot? We've talked about the physical inability to sleep. Now we have to talk about what happens when you do sleep, but your subconscious decides to turn the safety off. We are going deeper into the darkness now. We are going to explore the phenomenon that makes grown men scream for their mothers in the dead of night. We are going to talk about night terrors and why your brain feels the need to invent monsters that aren't there, just to see if you'll scream. So, you've managed to dodge the genetic bullet. Your thalamus is intact. Your prions are folded correctly, and you have successfully navigated the treacherous waters of insomnia to land on the shores of unconsciousness. You are asleep. You are safe. You are resting in the deepest, darkest trench of the sleep cycle, stage 3 non-rapid eye movement. This is the slow wave sleep, the restorative golden hour where the body repairs muscle and the brain takes out the trash. It should be the most peaceful place in the universe. But for some of you, this deep, dark trench is not a sanctuary. It is a launch pad for the single most primal expression of fear a human being can experience. We need to talk about night terrors. And before you nod and say, "Oh yeah, I have bad dreams sometimes," stop. Stop right there. You are confusing a paper cut with a gunshot wound. We are not talking about nightmares. A nightmare is a dream. It happens during REM sleep. It has a plot. You are late for a test, or a clown is chasing you, or your teeth fall out. It has a narrative structure, however loose. You wake up, you remember it, you feel shaken, you go back to sleep. A night terror clinically known as pavor nocturnus is not a dream. It is a biological error code. It is a grenade going off in your amygdala while your rational brain is completely offline. Here is the scene. It is 2 a.m. The house is silent. You are deeply asleep. Suddenly, without any warning, without any build-up, you sit bolt upright in bed and you scream. And I don't mean a little yelp. I mean a blood-curdling, lung-shredding shriek that sounds like you are being murdered. Your heart rate jumps from 50 to 120 beats per minute in seconds. Your skin is instantly drenched in cold sweat. Your pupils are dilated so wide that your eyes look like black holes. If your partner wakes up and tries to touch you, you thrash, you fight, you look right at them, but you don't see them. You are looking through them. You might point at the corner of the room and scream, "There!" or "Get it off." You are inconsolable. You are vibrating with a terror so absolute, so chemically pure, that it defies description. And here is the kicker. You aren't really there. This is what makes night terrors so much worse than nightmares. During a nightmare, your brain is active, weaving a story. During a night terror, you are stuck in a glitch between sleep stages. You are caught in the transition from deep sleep to lighter sleep. Your body's fight or flight system fires and dumps a massive load of adrenaline into your system. But your consciousness fails to wake up. You are a body possessed by fear, with no mind to regulate it. I stopped loving sleep when I witnessed this for the first time. To see a human being someone you love reduced to a trembling, screaming animal, staring at a horror that only they can see, is traumatizing. It breaks the trust you have in the person next to you. You realize that inside that sleeping body is a stranger capable of unimaginable panic. But let's look at it from the inside. What are you, the sleeper, experiencing? That's the fascinating and terrifying part. Unlike a nightmare, There is often no monster initially. There is just the feeling of the monster. In a nightmare, you see a wolf, and then you feel fear. In a night terror, you feel the fear first, an overwhelming, crushing sense of doom, and your brain, in a desperate attempt to make sense of this chemical surge, quickly improvises a reason. It's reverse engineering a haunt. Your amygdala screams, danger, and your visual cortex, still half asleep, scrambles to provide a picture that matches the intensity of the signal. So it projects a shadow man. It projects a giant spider. It projects the ceiling collapsing. The hallucination is a byproduct of the panic, not the cause of it. You are terrified, so you invent the terror. And because your prefrontal cortex, the logic center, is dormant in deep sleep, you have no defense. You cannot tell yourself it's not real. In that moment, it is the only reality. The walls are closing in. The intruder is in the room. The presence is hovering inches from your face. This phenomenon is most common in children, which adds a layer of tragedy to the horror. Imagine being 4 years old, trapped in a body that is screaming, while your parents hold you and you cannot recognize them. To the child in the grip of Paver Nocturnus, the comforting parent might look like the monster. The hug feels like a constriction. The soothing voice sounds like a threat. But adults get them too. And when adults get them, the violence scales up. An adult male in the throes of a night terror is a dangerous thing. The fight response is fully activated. People have punched holes in walls, broken windows, or assaulted their bed partners, all while being technically asleep. They are fighting for their lives against a phantom, and if you happen to be sleeping next to them, you are collateral damage. The aftermath is the final insult. After 10 or 20 minutes of this high-octane hysteria, the switch flips back. The person stops screaming. They might look around, confused, mutter something incoherent, and then they lay back down and go to sleep. Just like that, they drop back into the abyss as if nothing happened. And the next morning, they remember nothing. Zero. They wake up refreshed, stretching, asking what's for breakfast. Meanwhile, their partner is sitting at the kitchen table, traumatized, drinking their third cup of coffee, afraid to look them in the eye. The sleeper has total amnesia of the event. The terror leaves no footprint in the conscious memory because the recording tape of the brain wasn't running. This, to me, is the ultimate betrayal. You can go through hell. You can scream until your throat bleeds. You can experience the worst fear of your life, and your brain simply deletes the file. It makes you wonder, what else have you gone through in the dark that you don't remember? How many times have you sat up and stared at the corner of the room with dead eyes, while the rest of the house slept on, unaware? It suggests that there is a version of you that lives only in the dark. A version of you that is perpetually terrified, perpetually fighting, and perpetually erased by the morning sun. You are sharing your body with a nocturnal sufferer who bears the burden of your biological glitches. I stopped loving sleep because I realized that rest is a facade. Underneath the blanket of peace, there is a churning, violent machinery. The brain is not a computer that turns off. It is a nuclear reactor that sometimes leaks radiation. Night terrors are the meltdown. They are the proof that the hardware is unstable. And the triggers? Oh, they are beautifully mundane. Stress, fever, a full bladder, a noise outside. The slightest disruption can trip the wire. You are walking a tightrope every night, and you don't even know it. One slight imbalance in your neurochemistry, one mistimed transition between stage 3 and stage 4, and you are plunged into the scream. This phenomenon forces us to ask a disturbing question. Why? Why would evolution keep this bug in the system? Why hasn't natural selection weeded out the tendency to scream in the middle of the night, which, in the wild, would instantly alert every predator for miles to your location? Some evolutionary biologists believe it is a survival mechanism. They call it the sentinel hypothesis. The idea is that in a group of sleeping humans, having one person occasionally freak out and wake everyone up was actually good. It kept the group on their toes. It ensured that if there was a tiger, everyone was awake to deal with it. The person having the night terror is the sacrificial alarm system, the canary in the coal mine, hallucinating a threat so the tribe can be ready for a real one. So, your terror is a public service. Your scream is a biological air raid siren. Doesn't that make you feel better? No, it doesn't. It makes you feel like a pawn. It makes you feel like your peace of mind is secondary to some ancient, obsolete survival protocol. But night terrors, as violent as they are, usually involve staying in the bed. You sit up, you scream, you thrash, but you remain anchored to the mattress. The paralysis we spoke about earlier, that chemical straitjacket is usually partially intact, or at least you are too disoriented to navigate the room. But what happens when the brain wakes up enough to move, but not enough to think? What happens when the motor cortex comes fully online, the muscles unlock, and the subconscious decides to take the body for a walk? We are moving from the screamer to the walker, and not just the cute, cartoonish sleepwalker with arms outstretched. We are talking about complex, dangerous, and sometimes lethal behaviors performed by people who are legally and medically asleep. We are entering the world of homicidal somnambulism. Yes, that is a real term. And yes, it is exactly as terrifying as it sounds. We have established that you can scream. We have established that you can suffer. But up until now, we have largely assumed that your body remains a passive vessel, anchored to the mattress by that chemical straitjacket we discussed earlier. But what happens when the chemicals fail? What happens when the brainstem forgets to paralyze the muscles, but the consciousness refuses to wake up? You become an automaton. This is the realm of somnambulism, or sleepwalking. And I don't want you to picture the cartoon version, the guy in striped pajamas with his arms stretched out like a mummy, bumping into walls. That is a comforting fiction. Real sleepwalkers do not walk with their arms out. They walk like you. They move with purpose. Their eyes are often wide open, glassy, but functioning. They can navigate furniture. They can unlock doors. They can operate heavy machinery. And as history has bloodily proven, they can kill. I stopped loving sleep when I studied the case of Kenneth Parks. If you want to understand why the night is dangerous, you have to look at what happened in Toronto in 1987. Kenneth Parks was a 23-year-old man with a gambling problem and some debt, but he was by all accounts a gentle man who had a good relationship with his in-laws. One night, he fell asleep on his couch watching Saturday Night Live. The next thing he remembers is seeing the face of a police officer. In the interim, in the gap of time that should have been filled with dreams, Kenneth Parks got up. He put on his shoes and his jacket. He walked out of his house, got into his car, and drove 23 kilometers, about 14 miles, through city traffic. Think about the complexity of driving. You have to obey traffic lights, judge distances, modulate the gas and brake pedals, navigate turns. His brain did all of this on autopilot. He arrived at the home of his in-laws. He took a tire iron from his trunk. He used a key to enter the house. He strangled his father-in-law into unconsciousness and bludgeoned his mother-in-law to death. He then went back to his car, drove to a nearby police station, walked in and collapsed, telling the officers, "I think I have killed some people. My hands," only then realizing that his own tendons were severed and he was covered in blood. Kenneth Parks was not awake. During his trial, sleep experts hooked him up to EEGs. They found that his brain had a freakish ability to switch between deep, slow-wave sleep and awake-like motor activity without ever passing through consciousness. His brain was a split screen. The part that moves was fully operational, but the part that judges, the part that has a conscience, the part that makes you you, was dead asleep. He was acquitted, The jury believed, and the Supreme Court of Canada later upheld, that he was not criminally responsible because he was essentially a biological machine at the time of the murder. He was a passenger in a car driven by his subconscious. This is the concept of homicidal somnambulism. It forces us to confront a terrifying reality. Morality is a waking function. Your conscience, your ethics, your love for your family. Those are functions of the prefrontal cortex. When that part of the brain is offline, you are not a good person or a bad person. You are just a biological organism responding to stimuli. If the lizard brain says threat, the lizard brain destroys the threat. It doesn't care if the threat is your mother-in-law. This isn't an isolated incident. Go back to 1846. Albert Tyrrell was the first person in legal history to successfully use the sleepwalking defense after he slit the throat of a woman in a Boston brothel and then set the place on fire. His lawyer argued that since Tyrrell was a known sleepwalker, he couldn't be held accountable. He walked free. Or look at the case of Scott Falater in 1997. He was a neighbor, a husband, a father. One night, he dragged his wife into the backyard and stabbed her 44 times, then held her head underwater in the pool. When the police arrived, he was confused, claiming he had just been fixing the pool pump. He had no memory of the violence. These stories chill me to the bone because they dismantle the idea of self. We like to think that we are in control, that we would never hurt the people we love. But sleep strips away the I. It leaves only the it, and the it is capable of anything. Parasomnias, the umbrella term for these weird behaviors, show us that the brain can perform incredibly complex tasks without any conscious oversight. There is a condition called sexsomnia, where people initiate aggressive sexual activity while asleep. There is sleep-eating disorder, where people wake up surrounded by wrappers, having consumed thousands of calories of bizarre food combinations, sticks of butter, raw meat, coffee grounds with no memory of it. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that my body could be hijacked. You lock your front door to keep intruders out, but what do you do when the intruder is already inside? What do you do when the intruder is wearing your skin? The science behind this is called local sleep. We used to think sleep was a global state. The whole brain was either on or off. Now we know that's false. Parts of your brain can be asleep while other parts are wide awake. In a sleepwalker, the motor cortex, movement, and the cingulate gyrus, emotion, aggression, are blazing with activity, while the frontal lobes, judgment, reasoning, are in a coma. It creates a zombie, a literal neurological zombie, and the triggers are mundane. Sleep deprivation, stress, alcohol, a slight fever. The very things that make you need sleep the most are the things that make sleep dangerous. You are exhausted, so you crash hard, skipping the light stages and plummeting into deep sleep. The brain struggles to transition back out, gets stuck in the glitch, and decides to go for a drive. Imagine the horror of the waking up moment. Imagine the sensory shock. You close your eyes in your warm bed, safe and sound. You open them, and you are standing in the snow, barefoot. Or you are in the kitchen, holding a knife. Or you are in a police interrogation room. The gap in your memory is a black hole that has swallowed your life. You can't trust yourself. That is the ultimate conclusion of the sleepwalker. You can lock the doors, hide the car keys, and tie yourself to the bedpost, which some chronic sleepwalkers actually do. But you cannot police your own mind when the warden goes on break. I have a friend who sets up a motion-activated camera in his hallway because he found dirt in his bed one morning. He reviewed the footage. He watched himself at 3 a.m., walk to the front door, stand there for 20 minutes staring at the deadbolt, and then walk back to bed. He looked awake. He looked contemplative. He has no idea what he was thinking. Was he trying to leave? Was he waiting for someone? Was he guarding the house? He doesn't know. He will never know. He shares his apartment with a silent, nocturnal doppelganger who has his own agenda. And if that doesn't terrify you, consider the legal implications. The law acknowledges that the sleeping you is a different entity than the waking you. The law says you are not responsible for what the sleeping you does. That is a legal admission that we are two people sharing one body. And the other guy, the one who takes over at night, he doesn't follow the rules. We are fragile, chemical puppets. And every night, we cut the strings and hope that we don't start dancing on our own. But sometimes, the puppet dances. Sometimes it picks up a tire iron. You might be thinking, well, I've never sleepwalked, so I'm safe. Are you? Or do you just not remember? Unless you have a camera or a partner who stays awake to watch you, you have no evidence. You assume you stayed in bed because you woke up in bed. But Kenneth Parks woke up in bed many times before the night he didn't. It is a progressive failure. But let's assume you stay in bed. Let's assume you don't walk, you don't scream, and your thalamus holds the gate. There are other ways to break a human being. You don't need zombies or genetic diseases. Sometimes all you need to destroy a person is to simply take the sleep away, hour by hour, day by day, until the mind cracks. We are going to leave the accidental horrors of biology now and look at the intentional ones. We are going to look at what happens when other humans decide to weaponize your need for rest. We are going to explore the history of sleep deprivation as torture and how the military learned that the fastest way to break a soldier is not through pain, but through wakefulness. You like to think you are strong. You tell yourself that if you were ever captured, if you were ever in a situation where your loyalty or your endurance was tested, you would hold out. You imagine physical pain, the rack, the whip, the heated iron, and you steel yourself against it. You think, I can take a punch. I can take a beating. And maybe you can. But there is a weapon that doesn't leave a bruise, doesn't break a bone, and doesn't draw a single drop of blood. Yet it is 100% effective at dismantling the human soul. It is the simple act of keeping you awake. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that my need for it was the biggest chink in my armor. Sleep deprivation is the ultimate master key to the human mind. If I want your secrets, I don't need to pull out your fingernails. I just need to shine a bright light in your face and play loud music every time your eyelids droop. I just need to wait. Biology will do the rest. History is a graveyard of people who broke not because they were weak, but because they were tired. Let's look at the darker chapters of our past, the witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries. We all know about the burnings and the drownings, but the primary method of extracting a confession was the waking. They called it tormentum insomnia. The accused witch was forced to stay awake for days on end. They would walk her back and forth in her cell, walking the witch until her feet blistered. If she stopped moving, they would prod her. If she closed her eyes, they would shout. The logic was twisted but effective. They believed that the witch needed to fall asleep so her familiar, the demon that gave her power, could visit her. By keeping her awake, they were protecting her soul. But in reality, they were inducing a psychotic break. After 3 or 4 days without sleep, these women didn't just confess to witchcraft, they believed it. They hallucinated devils in the corner. They saw imps nursing at their fingers. They told the inquisitors exactly what they wanted to hear, weaving elaborate tales of flying on broomsticks and dancing with Satan, just to be allowed to lay their heads on the straw. They bought their death with a confession, just to catch a nap before the fire. Fast forward to the 20th century. The techniques became more refined, industrial even. The KGB in the Soviet Union perfected the conveyor belt. They didn't beat you. They just interviewed you endlessly. One interrogator would ask questions for 4 hours and swap out with a fresh one. Then another, and another. You, the prisoner, sat on a hard stool under a glaring bulb. No concept of day or night. Just voices. Just questions. After 48 hours, the defensive walls of the ego begin to crumble. The brain, starved of the glymphatic flush we talked about earlier, begins to drown in its own metabolic waste. Adenosine, the chemical that creates sleep pressure, binds to your receptors with the force of a vice grip. It physically hurts. Your eyes feel like they are filled with sand. Your muscles twitch. After 72 hours, the hallucinations start. But unlike the witch trials, these are cold, paranoid hallucinations. The room stretches. The interrogator's face melts. You start to hear voices that aren't there. And then comes the emotional collapse. This is the breakage. Grown men, hardened soldiers who have seen combat, will begin to weep uncontrollably like children. They regress. They become suggestible. If the interrogator says, "You signed the document on Friday, didn't you?" Your exhausted brain, desperate for a resolution, says, "Yes, yes, I did." Not because you did, but because agreeing is the path of least resistance. Disagreeing requires cognitive energy you no longer possess. You will sign your own death warrant just to stop the questions. You will sell out your country, your family, and your God just for 30 minutes of unconsciousness. This is why sleep deprivation is classified as torture by the UN, even though it leaves no physical marks. It assaults the personality. It proves that you only exist as long as you're rested. Take away the sleep, and the you dissolves into a frantic, raw animal that will do anything to survive. But we don't just see this in torture chambers. We see it in the training of the most elite warriors on the planet. Look at the U.S. Navy SEALs and their infamous Hell Week. 5.5 days of continuous physical training with a total of maybe 4 hours of sleep, not per night, but for the entire week. Why do they do this? It's not just to see who can run the fastest. It's to see who can function when their brain is offline. They are looking for the men who can keep shooting when the shadow people appear. And the shadow people always appear. Ask any SEAL who has survived Hell Week. They all have stories. They see rubber ducks floating in the surf. They see enemy soldiers in the trees who turn out to be stop signs. They see bridges where there is only open water. There is a famous story of a SEAL candidate who, on the 4th day of Hell Week, started paddling his imaginary canoe in the middle of the mess hall. He wasn't trying to be funny. His brain had snapped. He was fully hallucinating that he was on a river. The instructors didn't laugh. They watched. They watched to see if he would paddle his way back to reality, or if he was lost. I stopped loving sleep when I looked at this and realized the implication. Sanity is not a fixed state. Sanity is a function of sleep. You are only sane because you slept last night. If I kept you awake for 5 days, you would be just as crazy as the guy paddling the canoe. We are all just 3 bad nights away from psychosis. And this weaponization has a more subtle, modern variant. It's called PSYOPs, or psychological operations. In conflicts like the siege of Waco or the invasion of Panama, the military blasted loud, irritating music 24/7. Heavy metal, children's songs, screeches. The goal wasn't to annoy. The goal was to deny sleep, to grind the enemy down until their decision-making skills were that of a toddler. Imagine trying to command an army or negotiate a surrender when you haven't slept in 90 hours. You make mistakes. You get sloppy. You give up. The weapon works because it attacks the biological hard drive. It corrupts the data. This is the ultimate humiliation of the human condition. We can build skyscrapers. We can split the atom. We can fly to the moon. But if we don't lie down and close our eyes for a third of our existence, we fall apart. We are tethered to this vulnerability. And knowing this, knowing how fragile we are, makes the bed feel different, doesn't it? It's no longer just a place of comfort. It's a refueling station that you must visit to maintain your humanity. You are a slave to the pillow. But what happens when this deprivation isn't inflicted by a sadistic interrogator or a drill sergeant? What happens when it is inflicted by the very structure of the society you live in? What if the torture isn't a special event, but the default setting of your daily life? We are moving from the specific horror of the interrogation room to the general horror of the modern world. We have built a civilization that hates sleep. We have invented a world that never stops, and we have dragged our Stone Age bodies into a neon-lit, caffeine-fueled nightmare where the factory whistle has been replaced by the smartphone notification. The Industrial Revolution didn't just change how we work. It changed how we dream. It declared war on the circadian rhythm. We are about to explore how capitalism stole your night, how the invention of the light bulb was the first shot in a war you are currently losing, and why you feel guilty every time you take a nap. You don't need a KGB interrogator to torture you. You don't need a Navy SEAL instructor screaming in your face to break your spirit. You just need an alarm clock. Think about the violence of that device. You are in the middle of a dream. Your brain is washing itself. Your cells are repairing, and suddenly, beep, beep, beep. It is a sonic assault. It is a jarring, unnatural laceration of consciousness that drags you kicking and screaming from the warm womb of sleep into the cold, fluorescent light of obligation. And you do it voluntarily. You set the trap yourself every single night. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that modern society has engineered a world where rest is treated as a defect. We are living in the wreckage of the Industrial Revolution, and the casualty count is measured in hours of lost shut-eye. Before the factories rose up and blackened the skies, time was fluid. You slept when it was dark. You woke when it was light. The rooster didn't have a snooze button. The cows didn't care about quarterly projections. Your body was synced to the rotation of the planet. It was an agrarian rhythm, a biological waltz between the sun and your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock in your brain. Then came the steam engine. Then came the machines. The machines were a miracle. Yes, they could weave cloth, forge steel, and pump water faster than any human. But they had one distinct advantage over their creators. They didn't get tired. A machine can run for 24 hours a day. It doesn't need a nap. It doesn't need to dream. And the captains of industry looked at these relentless metal beasts and then looked at their human workers, and they saw a problem. The humans were the bottleneck. The humans needed to stop. So they declared war on the night. The first weapon was the whistle. The factory whistle replaced the church bell. It didn't ring to call you to prayer. It shrieked to call you to the line. It sliced the day into rigid blocks of productivity. Time is money, they said. And if time is money, then sleep is embezzlement. Sleep is stealing hours from the company. But the whistle wasn't enough. The sun was still a problem. You couldn't work the loom in the pitch black. Enter the villain of our story, Thomas Edison. Now, you probably learned that Edison was a genius, a hero who illuminated the world. But to the sleep lover, Edison is the devil. He famously hated sleep. He called it a heritage from our cave days and a criminal waste of time. He claimed he only slept 4 hours a night. He viewed the human need for rest as a design flaw that could be engineered out of the system. And he built the perfect weapon to do it, the light bulb. Before the bulb, the night was absolute. A candle or an oil lamp casts a weak, flickering pool of yellow light that barely reaches the corners of a room. It signals the brain to wind down. But the electric bulb? It conquered the darkness. It turned night into day. It allowed the factory floor to be as bright at 3 a.m. as it was at noon. This was the moment humanity fractured. We decoupled ourselves from the solar system. We created an artificial forever day. Now, the factory could run 3 shifts. The graveyard shift was born a term that is more literal than you'd like to admit. We started asking human beings to invert their biology, to fight millions of years of evolution, to stand in front of a conveyor belt at 4 a.m., and pretend they were awake. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that my exhaustion was a product feature of capitalism. The entire economy is built on the premise that you should be doing something other than sleeping. Look at the culture we built on this foundation. We fetishize the grind. We look up to the CEO who says, "I wake up at 3:30 a.m. to meditate and check emails." We wear our sleep deprivation like a badge of honor. "I pulled an all-nighter," you say, beaming with pride, as if destroying your brain tissue is an achievement. If you tell your boss, "I got a solid 9 hours last night," you sound lazy, you sound unmotivated, you sound like you don't want it bad enough. We have internalized the voice of the factory owner. We feel guilty for resting. You lie on the couch on a Saturday afternoon, your eyes heavy, and a voice in your head says, "You should be cleaning. You should be working out. You should be hustling." That is the ghost of the Industrial Revolution haunting your living room. And physically, the cost is catastrophic. Your body does not know what a shift is. Your liver, your heart, and your pancreas are still running on Stone Age software. They expect the dark. When you force them to operate in the light, under the stress of work, during the time they should be dormant, you break the machine. The World Health Organization has actually classified night shift work as a probable carcinogen. Let that sink in. Working at night is in the same category as exposure to UV radiation or anabolic steroids. It causes cancer. By denying your body the darkness, you are literally poisoning yourself. You are increasing your risk of heart disease, diabetes, and depression, all for the sake of keeping the assembly line moving. But it's not just the shift workers. It's all of us. We live in a world that is illuminated to the point of obscenity. Light pollution has erased the stars. You can stand in the middle of a city at midnight and read a newspaper. Your poor, confused pineal gland is trying to squeeze out a drop of melatonin, but the streetlights, the billboards, and the headlights are screaming, "It's noon! Stay alert!" We have forgotten the velvet texture of true darkness. We have forgotten the quiet. The industrial hum is always there. The refrigerator, the Shivek system, the distant traffic. Silence is a luxury item. Darkness is a commodity you have to buy in the form of blackout curtains and eye masks. And what did we get in exchange for giving up our dreams? Did we get more leisure? Did we get happier? No. We got the 24-hour news cycle. We got the 24-hour drive-through. We got the ability to buy a toaster on Amazon at 2:45 a.m. We traded the restoration of our souls for convenience. I stopped loving sleep because I realized I was fighting a losing battle against the infrastructure of my own life. Every time I try to sleep, I am fighting the traffic noise, the street lamp outside my window, the anxiety of the alarm clock, and the cultural pressure to be productive. The world is designed to keep me awake. And because we are so desperate to force our bodies into this unnatural rhythm, because we cannot simply drift off when the sun goes down anymore, we had to invent a new way to knock ourselves out. We couldn't rely on the sun, so we turned to the chemist. If the machine won't power down, you pull the plug. If the human won't sleep, you drug him. We are about to enter the medicine cabinet of history. We are going to look at the terrifying things we have swallowed, injected, and inhaled in a desperate attempt to force the unconsciousness that the industrial world stole from us. You think your melatonin gummy is innocent? Wait until you hear about the syrups that killed thousands, the pills that erased memories, and the mother's helpers that turned a generation of housewives into walking ghosts. We are trading the factory whistle for the pill bottle. So the factory whistle is blowing, the electric lights are blazing, and your circadian rhythm is shattered. You are lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, desperate for that elusive 8-hour block that society demands. Your body is humming with caffeine and cortisol. You cannot switch off. But humanity, in its infinite ingenuity, decided that if we couldn't court sleep like a lover, we would kidnap it like a victim. We stopped trying to fall asleep and started trying to knock ourselves out. Welcome to the chemical warfare against consciousness. I stopped loving sleep when I looked at the bottle on my nightstand and realized it wasn't a supplement. It was a bludgeon. We have a long, dark history of swallowing poisons just to escape the noise of our own lives. And the scary part isn't that they don't work. It's that they work too well. Let's rewind to the Victorian era. The cobblestones are wet, the fog is thick, and the industrial machinery is grinding. You have a toothache or a cough, or you're just nervous. You go to the apothecary and you buy laudanum. It sounds elegant, doesn't it? A mystical name. But laudanum was roughly 10% powdered opium dissolved in alcohol. It was heroin wine. And it was cheaper than gin. People didn't just take it, they lived on it. It was the aspirin of the 19th century. And the sleep it produced? It wasn't rest, it was a coma. You would drift into a heavy narcotic stupor, wrapped in the warm, fuzzy blanket of opiate bliss. The dreams were vivid, often terrifyingly psychedelic. Where do you think Alice in Wonderland came from? But you were out. The horror of laudanum wasn't just the addiction. It was the indiscriminate use. They had versions for children. Godfrey's cordial and Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup were marketed to exhausted mothers. The bottle promised to soothe the baby. In reality, it drugged the infant into a state of respiratory depression. Many of those babies didn't wake up. They died of failure to thrive, starved or suffocated in their cribs, while their parents slept the deep sleep of the chemically sedated. We were culling a generation with the promise of a good night's rest. But as the 20th century rolled in, we wanted something more scientific. We wanted a pill. We wanted precision. Enter the barbiturates. If laudanum was a warm bath, barbiturates were a sledgehammer. Veronal, seconal, nembutal. They came in bright, candy-colored capsules. They were marketed as miracle cures for the stresses of modern life. In the 1940s and 50s, these were the sleeping pills you saw on the bedside tables of every noir film and in the medicine cabinets of every anxious housewife. But barbiturates had a nasty little secret. The therapeutic index was terrifyingly narrow. That means the difference between the dose that puts you to sleep and the dose that kills you was razor thin. Here's the scenario. You take a capsule of Seconal at 10 p.m. By 11 p.m., you're still awake, but you're groggy. Your memory is starting to fuzz. You think, did I take my pill? I don't remember. I better take one just to be safe, so you take a second one. That simple error, that automatism, was often fatal. Your breathing would slow down until it just stopped. This is how we lost Judy Garland. This is how we lost Marilyn Monroe. They weren't just drug addicts in the street junkie sense. They were insomniacs trying to navigate a minefield of prescription chemistry. They were chasing sleep and caught death instead. And yet, we kept swallowing them. Why? Because the alternative, the staring at the ceiling, the thinking, the being awake, was unbearable. Then came the benzodiazepines Valium, Xanax, the mother's little helper. They were safer, harder to overdose on, but they came with their own price tag. Dependency. You stopped being able to sleep without them. Your brain, sensing the influx of artificial sedation, stopped producing its own calming chemicals. You effectively castrated your own ability to self-soothe. You became tethered to the bottle. But let's talk about today. You might think, I don't take opium or barbiturates. I just take Ambi. I just take a little Z drug. Oh, you mean the drugs that cause complex sleep behaviors? That is the medical euphemism for doing insane things while technically unconscious. We talked about sleepwalking earlier as a natural glitch. Z drugs induce a chemical version of that glitch. People on these medications have woken up driving their cars. They have woken up arrested for shoplifting. They have woken up in their kitchens, surrounded by empty wrappers, having consumed 3,000 calories of butter and raw bacon, with absolutely no memory of the feast. This is the ambient walrus, the chaotic entity that takes over when the pill hits your bloodstream, but the lights don't go out fast enough. And here is the kicker, the thing that really made me stop loving sleep aids. None of this is sleep. Sedation is not sleep. If I hit you in the head with a brick and knock you unconscious, you are not sleeping. You are not getting the restorative benefits. Your brain waves are not cycling through the complex architecture of REM and deep sleep that we discussed in the beginning. You are just off. When you take a sleeping pill, or when you pass out from alcohol, the most common and most destructive sleep aid in history, you are effectively anesthetizing yourself. You are suppressing the cortex. You are robbing yourself of REM sleep. That's why, even after 10 hours of drug-induced stupor, you wake up feeling groggy, foggy, and unrefreshed. You haven't washed the brain. You've just frozen it in time. Alcohol is the great liar. You have a nightcap because it helps you fall asleep faster. And it does. It is a potent sedative. But as your liver metabolizes the alcohol, it creates a rebound effect. About 4 hours in, your system spikes with glutamate, an excitatory neurotransmitter. You wake up sweating, heart pounding at 3 a.m. You have effectively borrowed 4 hours of peace at an interest rate of 200% anxiety. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that for millions of people, going to bed is actually going under. We are a society of voluntary anesthesia patients. We are so terrified of our own thoughts, so battered by the industrial day, that we would rather chemically shut down our consciousness than risk lying in the dark with ourselves. Think about the trust you place in that pill. You swallow a chemical synthesized in a lab, designed to paralyze your nervous system, and you hope that your liver can process it before the morning. You are effectively practicing a mini-death every night. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the dark allure of the pill. It brings us closer to the void. It guarantees the erasure of the self. Because deep down, behind the insomnia, behind the anxiety, behind the fear of the next day, there is a much older, much deeper fear. The fear that sleep itself is just a rehearsal. Why do we fight it? Why do children beg for one more story? Why do we doom scroll until our eyes bleed? Because letting go is hard. Surrendering consciousness is terrifying. Every time you fall asleep, you are accepting that the world will continue without you. You are practicing for the ultimate checking out. We are about to confront the existential dread that underpins all of this. The cousin of death. The reason why, deep in your lizard brain, the act of closing your eyes feels like giving up. You aren't just afraid of not sleeping. You are afraid of what sleep represents. You lay down. You pull the covers up. You close your eyes. It is the most routine action of your life. You have done it thousands of times. But if you stop just for a second and really think about what you are doing, the terror washes over you like ice water. You are voluntarily extinguishing your consciousness. You are lying down in a dark box, mimicking the posture of a corpse, and praying that the system reboots in the morning. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that it is nothing less than a nightly rehearsal for death. We have all heard the phrase. It's in the rap lyrics. It's in the poetry. It's in the ancient texts. Sleep is the cousin of death. But we treat it like a metaphor. We treat it like a moody, artistic observation. It is not a metaphor. It is a literal, biological sibling. The ancient Greeks understood this better than we do. In their mythology, Hypnos, sleep, and Thanatos, death, were twin brothers. They were born of Nyx, night, and Erebus, darkness. They lived in the underworld. They were indistinguishable from one another. The only difference was that when Hypnos touched you, you woke up. When Thanatos touched you, you didn't. Think about the drop. You know the moment I'm talking about. You are lying there. Your thoughts are drifting. The logic of the day is starting to fray, and you feel yourself sinking. The tether that holds you to the world is loosening. And then Right at the precipice, right at the moment of crossover, your body violently jerks. You gasp, your heart hammers. We talked about this biologically earlier, the hypnic jerk. But look at it philosophically. That is your ego screaming. That is your sense of self clawing at the edge of the cliff, terrified of the fall. Your conscious mind looks into the abyss of unconsciousness, sees the total erasure of the self, and panics. It thinks it is dying, and in a way, it is. Because what happens to you when you sleep? You cease to exist. The continuous narrative of your life, the internal monologue that narrates your day, the I that feels hunger and love and annoyance simply stops. The tape cuts. There is a gap in the timeline. If you don't dream, and remember, most of the night is dreamless oblivion, you are nowhere. You are nothing. You are void. This is the root of thanatophobia, the fear of death. But for many of us, it mutates into somniphobia, the fear of sleep. Because deep down, the lizard brain can't tell the difference. To the primitive mind, loss of awareness is loss of life. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that the only thing separating a nap from a funeral is the morning alarm. Consider the phrase, died peacefully in their sleep. We use it as a comfort. We say, at least they didn't suffer. But think about the implication. It means that the boundary between sleep and death is so thin, so permeable, that you can slip from one to the other without even noticing. You don't know if you are falling asleep for 8 hours or for eternity. You assume you will wake up. You bet your life on it every single night. But you don't know. There is a profound existential vulnerability in that. You are surrendering control. You are taking your hands off the wheel. For the control freaks among us, and let's be honest, modern life turns us all into control freaks. This is intolerable. We want to be the pilots of our own existence. We want to oversee everything. Sleep demands that we resign. It demands that we trust the machinery of the body to keep the heart beating and the lungs inflating while the captain is away from the bridge. This is why the night is so heavy. In the daylight, you are distracted. You have work, you have noise, you have the performance of being alive. But in the dark, when the distractions fade, you are left with the ticking clock. You are left with the realization that your time is finite. And spending 8 hours of that finite time in a coma feels like a waste. It feels like a theft. This is the revenge bedtime procrastination we all do. You know the feeling. You are exhausted. Your eyes are burning. You want to sleep physically, but mentally, you refuse to close the laptop. You refuse to put down the phone. You watch one more episode. You scroll one more page. Why? It's not because the content is good. It's because you are raging against the dying of the light. You are fighting the inevitable surrender. Staying awake is a rebellion against your own mortality. It is a way of screaming, I am still here. I am still witnessing the world. To close your eyes is to admit defeat. To close your eyes is to step out of the stream of existence. And what about the morning? Have you ever thought about the strangeness of waking up? It is a resurrection. You open your eyes, and for a split second, there is a loading screen. You have to download your identity. Where am I? Who am I? What day is it? You have to reassemble the self from the fragments left in the hippocampus. There is a philosophical paradox called the swampman or the teletransporter. If you step into a machine that disintegrates you and reassembles an exact copy of you on Mars, is it still you? Or is the original you dead, and the person on Mars is a new entity with your memories? Sleep is a biological teletransporter. The you that went to bed last night ceased to be conscious. The stream was broken. The you that woke up this morning has all the memories, all the scars, and all the feelings of the previous version, but there was a break in the continuity. How do you know you are the same driver? How do you know you aren't just the next shift taking over the controls? I stopped loving sleep because I couldn't shake the feeling that every night was a suicide, and every morning was a case of mistaken identity. And this dread is amplified by the silence. In the golden age of our ancestors, death was loud. It was present. It was part of life. People died in the home. Bodies were washed on the dining table. You knew what death looked like. Today, we have sanitized death. We have hidden it in hospitals and funeral homes. We have made it a taboo. So, sleep has become the only reminder we have left. It is the only time we practice non-existence. And because we are so terrified of the end, we have become terrified of the practice run. You lie there, and your heart beats thump, 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 and you realize that it is the only thing keeping you here. If that rhythm stutters, if that electrical signal fails, you don't wake up. You become the object, not the subject. The room continues. The sun rises. The traffic starts. But you are gone. This is the heavy, suffocating thought that sits on your chest. This is the philosopher's insomnia. It's not anxiety about a meeting. It's not worry about money. It is the crushing weight of your own impermanence. You try to distract yourself. You try to think of pleasant things, beaches, forests, winning the lottery. But the void is always there, hovering at the periphery of your vision. It is the black backdrop against which your dreams are projected. And so, we build defenses. We build rituals. We check the locks. We drink the water. We adjust the pillows. We are trying to build a fortress against the nothingness. We are trying to convince ourselves that we are safe, that the bed is a sanctuary, not a sarcophagus. But the bed is a sarcophagus. It is a soft, rectangular container where you lay in the dark, immobile, senseless. We even dress for it. We put on sleep clothes. We have specific burial linens for our nightly death. The parallels are too strong to ignore. I eventually accepted that I didn't hate being tired. I hated being vulnerable. I hated the fact that for a third of my life, I was nothing more than meat breathing in a room. I wanted to be pure mind. I wanted to be eternal. But the eyelids always get heavy. The adenosine always wins. The reaper or his twin brother always comes to collect his due. So, what do we do to fight this existential terror? We can't stop the biology. We can't stop the sun from going down. So we do the only thing we can think of. We refuse to let the darkness in. We fill the void with light. We fill the silence with data. We build a digital campfire and huddle around it, terrified to look away. Because as long as we are scrolling, we are alive. We have replaced the candle with the screen. We have replaced the prayer with the feed. And in doing so, we have created a new kind of purgatorial state where we are neither fully awake nor fully asleep, but suspended in a blue-lit limbo of information overload. We are about to look at the final nail in the coffin of sleep. We are going to explore how we use technology not just to work, but to keep the cousin of death at bay. We are going to talk about the blue light, the digital vigil, and why you're listening to this right now instead of dreaming. You are holding the enemy in your hand right now. I want you to become hyper-aware of the device you are using to listen to my voice. It might be resting on the nightstand, casting a faint halo on the ceiling. It might be clutched in your hand, the screen dimmed to its lowest setting, inches from your face. You think of it as a tool, a lifeline, a source of entertainment. But in the context of sleep, it is a weapon. It is a biological saboteur that you have voluntarily invited into the most intimate space of your life. I stopped loving sleep when I realized that I had traded my circadian rhythm for a Wi-Fi signal. We spoke about the fear of the void, the dread of the silence. Well, this is your answer to that dread. The smartphone is the modern campfire. For 100,000 years, humans huddled around the fire to keep the predators at bay. The light meant safety. The light meant we are still here. Today, the fire has gone digital. but the instinct remains the same. You scroll, you tap, you refresh, not because you care about the content, but because the act of looking keeps the darkness away. But there is a price for this artificial safety, and the price is paid in melatonin. Let's look at the physics of the betrayal. The screen you are staring at emits a specific spectrum of light short wavelength, high-energy blue light. It peaks right around 460 to 480 nanometers. To your conscious mind, it's just a backlight. But to your biology, it is the sun. Deep inside your retina, there are specialized cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. They have one job: to tell your brain what time it is. They are incredibly sensitive to that blue spectrum. When that light hits your retina, these cells send a screaming signal to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It is noon. The sun is directly overhead. Be alert. Hunt, gather, survive. Your brain, dutiful servant that it is, responds instantly. It slams the brakes on the pineal gland. It halts the production of melatonin, the hormone that is supposed to usher you into the night. It is a chemical abort code. You are lying in a pitch-black room at 11:30 p.m., but your brain is biochemically convinced that you are standing in the middle of the Sahara Desert at high noon. You are experiencing social jet lag. You are shifting your time zone every single night, traveling eastward into a perpetual morning that never breaks. But it's not just the light. If it were just the light, we could wear orange glasses, which, let's be honest, look ridiculous, and be fine. No, the true fracture comes from what the light carries. The device is a portal to the economy of attention. Every app on your phone is engineered by the smartest behavioral psychologists in the world with one singular goal: to keep you awake. They use variable reward schedules, the exact same psychological mechanism used in slot machines. You pull to refresh. Will it be a funny meme? A tragedy? A text from an ex? A notification? You don't know. And because you don't know, you pull again and again. You are doping yourself with microdoses of dopamine. Every notification is a tiny hit. Bing, someone liked your photo. Buzz, breaking news. Ding, an email from your boss. Each sound, each vibration triggers a spike of arousal. Your heart rate elevates. Your cortisol creeps up. You are in a state of high alert. This is the digital vigil. In the old days, the sentinels stood watch on the castle wall to look for Vikings. Today, you stand watch on Twitter to look for outrage. You are keeping a vigil over a digital world that never sleeps. And because it never sleeps, you feel you can't either. You have FOMO, fear of missing out, mutating into a fear of disconnection. If you close your eyes, the stream continues without you. The world keeps spinning, the data keeps flowing, and you are rendered obsolete. I stopped loving sleep when I realized my bedroom had become a command center. Look at your room. It used to be a sanctuary, a place for sex and sleep, and nothing else. Now, it's a cinema. It's an office. It's a shopping mall. It's a debate hall. By bringing the device into the bed, you have destroyed the psychological association between mattress and rest. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine. If you spend 2 hours every night lying in bed, answering emails or arguing with strangers on Facebook, your brain learns a new pattern. Bed equals work. Bed equals conflict. Bed equals stimulation. So when you finally decide to put the phone down, your brain is confused. Wait, it thinks. I thought this was the place where we get angry at the news. Why are we closing our eyes? You have to fight through the association you created. You have to deprogram the location. And the irony, the bitter, hysterical irony, is that we use the device to try to fix the problem the device caused. What are you doing right now? You are listening to a sleep aid or a bedtime story on the very machine that is keeping you awake. We download white noise apps. We listen to rain sounds. We watch SMR videos of people whispering and tapping on microphones. We track our sleep stages with smartwatches that blast Bluetooth radiation through our wrists while we dream. We are trying to use technology to cure the disease of technology. We are fighting fire with gasoline. I found myself in this trap. I would lay there, eyes burning, scrolling through articles about how to sleep better. I would read about the dangers of blue light while bathing my face in blue light. It is a form of insanity. It is a loop. And consider the content of the scroll. We call it doom scrolling for a reason. At night, your defenses are down. You are tired. You are vulnerable. And that is when the algorithm feeds you the worst of humanity. Wars, famines, political collapse, impending climate doom. You are injecting trauma directly into your visual cortex right before you attempt to enter a state of vulnerability. Is it any wonder you have nightmares? Is it any wonder you grind your teeth? You are going to sleep with the weight of the world's suffering resting on your chest. You are taking the entire internet to bed with you. This digital vigil has fundamentally changed the texture of the night. The night is no longer a time of solitude. It is a time of hyperconnection. There is no silence anymore. Even if your phone is on silent, the potential for noise is there. The knowledge that anyone, anywhere in the world, could reach you in 1 second creates a subtle, low-level tension. You are never truly off the clock. You are just on standby mode. We have become data zombies. We are half awake, bathed in the sickly glow of the LED, swiping through images of other people's lives, desperate for a connection that the screen can simulate but never deliver. And when you finally do crash, when the sheer exhaustion overrides the dopamine and the blue light, the sleep you get is shallow. It is junk sleep. The presence of the phone affects the depth of your rest. Studies show that just having the phone in the room, even if it's off, reduces cognitive capacity and sleep quality. It is a presence. It is an intruder. I stopped loving sleep because I realized I could no longer do it alone. I needed the podcast. I needed the TV on in the background. I needed the fan app. I had lost the ability to simply be with myself in the dark. I had outsourced my ability to self-soothe the Silicon Valley. The blue light has severed the ancient cord between the human and the cosmos. We don't look at the stars anymore. We look at the pixels. We don't follow the moon. We follow the battery percentage. We have built a cage of light and information, and we have locked ourselves inside it, terrified that if the battery dies, we will have to face the silence. But the battery always dies eventually. The screen always goes black. And in that brief moment, before you plug it in, you catch your own reflection in the dark glass. You look tired. You look gray. You look like a ghost haunting a machine. And you realize that you can't keep this up. You realize that no matter how much you scroll, no matter how many distraction tactics you employ, the biology is undefeated. The body keeps the score. The debt is accumulating. We have reached the end of the line. We have explored the childhood nostalgia, the biological horror, the historical filth, the chemical warfare, and the digital addiction. We have stripped the bed of every comfort and exposed the nightmare machinery beneath. There is nothing left to analyze. There is no new horror to uncover. There is only the inevitable conclusion. You have to go back. You have to do the thing you hate. You have to surrender. We are going to the final step. We are going to stop fighting. We are going to look the beast in the eye and accept our fate. We are going to talk about the necessary evil and why, despite everything I have just told you, you are going to close your eyes anyway. So here we are. The phone is down. The blue light has faded from your retinas, leaving only the afterimage of the feed burned into your vision like a ghost. The room is quiet, save for the hum of the refrigerator or the distant rush of a car on wet pavement. You are back where you started. You are back in the box. We have spent the last hour dissecting the anatomy of the night. We have peeled back the sheets to reveal the bedbugs, the demons, the chemical paralysis, the genetic mutations, and the existential voids. We have proven logically and biologically that sleep is a terrifying, dangerous, and messy business. We have proven that the act of lying down is an act of madness. And yet, look at you. Your eyelids are heavy. They feel like they have lead weights sewn into the lashes. Your limbs are beginning to tingle with that familiar narcotic warmth. The muscles in your neck are giving up the fight to hold your head up. You are sinking. I stopped loving sleep because I learned too much about it. I saw the wires and the gears behind the curtain. But in the end, my knowledge and yours is irrelevant. The biology doesn't care what you know. The biology demands its tribute. This is the surrender. This is the moment where the intellectual protest collapses under the weight of physiological necessity. You can hate the concept of sleep. You can fear the night hag. You can dread the loss of time. You can rage against the dying of the light until your throat is raw. But eventually, the adenosine wins. Eventually, the brain demands the wash cycle. And there is a specific dark beauty in this defeat. Think about the arrogance of the human condition. We spend our days trying to control everything. We control the temperature of our rooms. We control the calories we eat. We control the information we consume. We build schedules and 5-year plans. We are obsessed with agency. But sleep? Sleep is the ultimate humiliation of that agency. It is the universe grabbing you by the scruff of the neck and saying, "You are done now. You are not a god. You are an animal, and you need to power down." There is a relief in that humiliation. When you finally stop fighting, when you finally let the phone drop from your hand and the darkness take you, you are admitting that you are not essential to the operation of the world. The world will spin without you for the next 8 hours. The stock market will move. The wars will continue. The sun will cross the other side of the planet. And you are released from the burden of witnessing it. This is the necessary evil. It is evil because it steals your time and threatens your sanity. It is necessary because without it, you are nothing. I stopped loving sleep the way a child loves a toy, and I started loving it the way a prisoner loves a lenient guard. I respect the power of it. I fear the consequences of disobeying it. I realized that the relationship isn't a romance. It's a hostage situation, and I am the hostage. But the cell is comfortable, isn't it? Feel the pillow. Really feel it. It is cool against your cheek. It cradles the skull that holds all those terrifying thoughts we just discussed. Feel the duvet. It is heavy. It mimics the pressure of the dirt, yes, but it also mimics the pressure of an embrace. You are burying yourself, but you are also swaddling yourself. You are making the bargain. You are signing the contract for another night. You are saying to your brain, "Okay, do your worst. Paralyze me. Hallucinate for me. Scrub my synapses. Just take the pain of being awake away for a little while. Because that is the alternative, isn't it? The pain of consciousness. Being awake is hard work. It requires constant processing, constant reacting, constant emotional regulation. It wears you down. The friction of existence grinds your gears until they are smooth and slipping. Sleep is the grease. Sleep is the only thing that allows you to do it all again tomorrow. So you accept the risk. You accept that you might wake up screaming. You accept that you might walk to the kitchen and eat a stick of butter. You accept that the night hag might come to sit on your chest. You accept that you are practicing for death. You accept it all because the pull of the void is stronger than the fear of the contents. You are waving the white flag. And as you lie there, waiting for the drop, waiting for that hypnic jerk to signal that the ego has left the building, you might find that the fear dissipates. It is replaced by a strange, numb gratitude. You don't have to be you anymore. You can just be a body. You can just be a rhythmic breathing machine. You can dissolve. The industrial whistle can't hurt you here. The blue light can't reach you here. The history of the straw mattress and the communal bed is just a story now. It's just you and the dark. I stopped loving sleep, but I never stopped needing it. And in that need, there is a profound connection to every other human being who has ever lived. We are all united by this vulnerability. The king and the peasant, the soldier and the pacifist, the billionaire and the beggar, we all have to lie down. We all have to close our eyes. We all have to trust that we will wake up. It is the great equalizer. It is the shared prayer of the species. So do it. Give in. Let the tension drain out of your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Let your tongue fall away from the roof of your mouth. Stop holding yourself together. Let gravity win. The monsters might be there. The nightmares might be waiting. The glitches might happen. But you are too tired to care. And that, my friends, is the ultimate victory of the night. It makes you too exhausted to be afraid. You have survived the history. You have survived the biology. You have survived the society. Now, the only thing left to do is the one thing you cannot avoid. Go back to the golden age. Find the memory of the car ride. Find the memory of being carried. Pretend, just for a moment, that someone else is driving. Pretend that you are safe. Pretend that the dark is a friend. Close your eyes. And there it is. The story is over. The fear has been named, dissected, and put away in the drawer. You are still here. The bed is still soft. The room is still safe. If you are still listening to my voice, you are lingering at the threshold. You are standing in the doorway between the waking world and the shadow world. You might feel a little heavier now. That's good. That's the anchor dropping. I want you to take a deep breath, not a forced one, just to notice. Notice the air filling your lungs, expanding your ribs, and then leaving, in and out. Everything we talked about tonight, the hags, the pills, the factories, it's all just noise. It's data. And right now, you don't need data. You need silence. You need to let the dust settle. Think of your brain as that snow globe. We've been shaking it for the last hour, swirling the chaos around. Now, I want you to set it down on the table. Watch the flakes settle. Watch the white noise drift down to the bottom. Watch the water become clear. You don't have to think about the prions. You don't have to think about the alarm clock. Those are problems for the future you. The present you has only one job, to drift. Let the darkness wrap around you like a heavy coat. It's not a void. It's a blanket. It's not an end. It's a pause. You have earned this pause. You have fought the war of the day, and now you have permission to lay down your arms. The screen is dark. The voice is fading. The world is turning away from the sun. Let go. The end. Sweet dreams.